Hi, I'm Earl, and today I'm going to be teaching. Okay, I'll cut the bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm Earl Grey. I'm a drag king, and I'm going to be teaching you how to do drag king makeup today. I got comments from a couple kings who used to use my other tutorial that they would like another one, so I'm gonna go ahead and make this. I'm gonna try to make this tutorial as accessible as possible, so we're gonna be using our fingertips today. The one area where I am gonna use brushes is gonna be for the brows and for the eyeshadow, just because those areas are so small that it's kind of hard to do all that with just your fingertips. As far as the eyeshadow goes, if you have absolutely no brushes, then you probably could use like your pinky, but it's still gonna be kind of hard to get a proper blend in such a small area. If you are flat broke, you can still get brushes from the dollar store. However, cheaper brushes, they tend to, how do you say, fall apart. It might be worth it just to get a couple eyeshadow brushes. If you want like a full tutorial, like everything that I have ever learned about skincare and makeup full, I do have a Skillshare tutorial, which I'm gonna go ahead and link in the description. The paid tutorial is gonna cover literally everything that I know, from understanding your face shape, to all of the different kinds of brushes, to different ways of doing things, gluing your brows down. I even get into color theory a little bit. So if you feel like you need a little more hand holding, or you want to see more of the brush strokes that I do in real time so you can get a good look at how I apply, I would highly recommend investing in that. But for all my broke bitches, hi, I'm still here to help you. So first, I need to get all of this hair out of my face. Normally we could do that with like a wig cap or something, but all my wig caps have like huge holes in them right now, and I don't feel like getting roasted by my colleagues. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use a headband. Like magic, and not a jump cut. First thing, foundation. I'm not really gonna get super into the products that I'm using because I literally use hand-me-downs and pharmacy store makeup, literally just like whatever I have lying around. I'll list everything that I use in the description just in case you really are that curious and you're one of those really brand specific people who's like, I like the way that looks and I need to know now. Okay, am I getting into a manic phase? Maybe. First is foundation. You really want to pat it in. Make sure there aren't any like streaks or fingerprints left on your face while you're blending. This foundation is a little bit lighter than my skin tone, but that's okay because I'm going to be using a healthy amount of contour to kind of even it out. You might notice that I'm doing the foundation first, although a lot of queens will do their eyes first. I honestly cannot be bothered. The reason why it's good to do eyes first is just because it's easier to get rid of some of the fallout that might occur while you're doing your eyes instead of having the fallout end up on your foundation. The way that I do my makeup nowadays, though, I don't really struggle with fallout so much, so it's not that big of an issue with me, and it's not the end of the world if I have to use a baby wipe to wipe a little bit away. But you might want to do your eyes first if fallout is like a big problem for you. So you can rearrange the order of this tutorial if you want. Okay. Foundation, done. Now I'm gonna do my contour. For this, I'm gonna get rid of my necklace for a second, just because a lot of kings, especially if you are not on testosterone, in order to really sell that masculine illusion, want to have like an Adam's apple. So we're gonna create that with contour. Now for our contour, you can do like 2 to 3 colors. Right now I'm just gonna do 2 colors. I'm running a little low on my contour palette. You wanna have the lighter contour color first, and that's gonna cover a little more surface area. The darker contour color we're gonna have be on the deepest part of the line, a little bit thinner, like where the darkest part of the shadow would be. Because I'm on testosterone, I can kind of follow the natural lines of my face now. I'm gonna cut into my own cheekbone a little bit just to kind of demonstrate, so you can see that's not really where my natural cheekbone line is. Mine is down here. But I'm gonna cut into a little bit so that we can actually emphasize the jawline a little more. A lot of clubs are either really bright or really dark, so you wanna make sure that you define your jawline and make sure everything looks really sharp. Kings, we're pretty much emphasizing the opposite portions of our face than queens do. And where queens are trying to like soften and round out the harder lines of their face, we're pretty much trying to do the opposite. We're trying to sharpen up all of the rounder, softer, more feminine features of our face. Okay, now we are going to get into the nose. So with the nose, as far as the contour goes, you're gonna want to start underneath your eyebrow and then trail down and create the shape of the nose. Instead of slimming the nose and making it more feminine, I actually tend to emphasize the bump in the middle of my nose. Adding a little extra geometry there seems to kind of have a masculinizing effect. We'll round that out a little bit on the tip. What I also like to do is bring in the sides of my nose a little bit, the nostrils. It creates a little more shading on the sides. You want to make sure you completely wrap the contour around all the way to underneath the nose too. And we got the Cupid's bow too. Just want to make sure you blend out the sides of the Cupid's bow real well. All right, masculine faces also have more pronounced jowls, so we're gonna define these some more as well. I also like to emphasize my cleft chin. You can play with little details like those, like if you don't have a cleft chin, you can add one. And because of the harsher lines on masculine faces, I'm gonna put a little bit of contour here on that inner line of my eye as well. And we want to follow the contour line from the bottom of the jaw down onto the neck. And for consistency's sake, we're gonna add contour to the collarbone as well, both on top and underneath. Make sure you blend your contour really well, by the way, unless you're going for a particularly like cartoonish pop art effect. If you don't blend out your contour or add highlight on top of it, it can kind of end up looking like you were either rolling around in dirt or like somebody beat you up. It's just details you want to pay attention to. One of my favorite words to use in regard to makeup is intentional. You want to make sure your choices look intentional and that the audience isn't looking at your makeup kind of going like, okay, and we're gonna create the Adam's apple, usually somewhere toward the center of the neck. You just create a little circle between the necklines. Okay, and using our pinky to really get in there, we're gonna add sort of brow furrow. Okay, for the forehead, I do want to make a comment real quick on a mistake I usually see. You don't want the forehead to be the strongest part of your face. Otherwise, when you're lip syncing, people aren't going to be looking here, they're going to be looking up here. So make sure you blend out your forehead real well when you do it. Okay, so we're going to start at the corner of our brow up to the corner of our hairline. Masculine faces have more square foreheads, so we want to keep these lines sharp. I'm going to start with the outer edges because sometimes kings only really want to emphasize the outer edges and not contour the inner edges. So if you just want to do the outer edges and stop there, perfectly fine. Make sure that's blended out. You want to blend down into the hairline. Okay, now I'm going to contour the inner part of the forehead. Not everybody does this. Okay, you want to create like a little bit of space between the two lines. And we're going to do like a half moon shape. If you do contour your inner forehead, again, blend it out real well. Otherwise, it's gonna look kind of weird and distracting, my dudes. My guys, my manly men dudes, manly. Okay, you get my point. I'm gonna go ahead and do the highlight now. I like to do my highlight between contour shades just to kind of blend it in. I'm just gonna use Nye Clown White. It's usually better to use like an actual highlight shade. Sometimes they have a nicer shimmer to them and blend a little more with your skin tone. Sometimes I'll put shimmers or a little additional color on top of the highlight. Of course, Clown White's not gonna work with every skin tone. You can also, for highlight purposes, use something that's usually like around 2 or more shades lighter than your actual skin tone. You want something that is going to be noticeably lighter and really pop. As you can see, putting it on the jawline here adds emphasis to it, makes it look a little stronger. So we want to add the highlight to any parts that we really want to emphasize or make look larger. Any parts that the light is hitting stronger it tells the eyes that it's more pronounced. Just make sure you blend out the jaws really well, because that's another mistake I see typically made, is not blending out the jaw. Okay, and we want to get it on the chin too. Put a little bit on the jaws. And the brow bones are another important part for kings. You want to make sure that the highlight is stronger down here than it is on this line up here. I'm going to put a little bit in the middle of the forehead. Just a little bit. Again, we don't want too much attention up here. And we're going to want some in the middle of the Adam's apple. And then I like to put a little bit on the collarbone too. Okay, final place that we want to put some highlight is going to be on the nose. So toward the middle of the bump that we created. And then on the end of the nose. Sometimes if you want to slim a lot of your nose, you can add a little bit of highlight on the sides here too. Okay, second contour shade. I'm gonna use my pinky for this, because this one's gonna be a little smaller. Put this on the outer edge, or where the deepest point of the shadow is that I'm trying to create. On the top, the smallest part of the cleft chin, the deepest part. Yeah. The darker contour shade is probably another part that would be good to have a brush, really, just to really fine tune those lines. Cupid's bow, and then we're gonna add one more section of highlight after this around the mouth in the Cupid's bow. We'll get to that in a little bit. On the deepest portion of the cheekbone. Adding additional shades to contour just really helps to add that illusion of a shadow. Sides of the nose, bottom of the nose, inner part of the curve, edge of the forehead. I'm gonna add just a little bit to the corner parts of the inner forehead as well. Just again, gotta make sure we blend it out really well. Of course, when we powder our face, it's gonna lighten it up a little bit. If you're using powdered contour, you can always go in after you've powdered your face to sharpen up any lines that may have gotten a little too faded. Okay, so this is another part you're probably gonna want a brush to do. You can also use a white liner pencil, which might make this easier. But you just wanna get like a skinny brow or liner brush, dip it into your highlight, and you wanna get those lines between the Cupid's bow from the nostril down. And we can also use it to highlight and reshape the outer edges of your lips. Some people, if they have very feminine faces, really want to make their lips smaller. Men can have big lips too, but if the overall look of their face is very feminine, sometimes they might want to bring in the lips a little bit just to get rid of some of the softness. How you reshape and contour everything is really going to depend on the shape of your own face, you know? The last place you really want to get the darker contour is going to be underneath your Adam's apple. Don't get it on the top. You don't want it to just look like a circle, because that's not the way shadows naturally fall. Get a little bit to the edges of the neck. If you're a person who has a super oily face, or you tend to sweat a lot, you might want to bake right now. You'd mostly want to get the portions of your face that really have highlight and foundation. I hardly sweat at all. So I'm going to powder and bake everything at the end. I also like to make sure that I powder on top of the liquid liner that I use, just because the areas that I do sweat tend to be like my nostrils and some of the places where I add liquid liner details. The powder tends to fade any of the liner that you put it on top of, so again, you just want to go in and sharpen any lines. So now we're going to do brows. Some people use brow pencils. I use a potted gel, so I'm going to take a little brow brush. So queens usually try to get the brows higher up on their face in order to create a smaller forehead and a bigger eye. We're doing the opposite. I have really big eyes, so I want to put more emphasis on the brows and the masculine part of the face. So I'm actually going to bring my brow down, and I'm going to paint a little underneath my natural brow line and bring it down farther. If you want to play with different shapes, you're going to want to make sure you glue your brows down. I don't glue my brows down because of the way that I paint my brows. It kind of just unnecessarily takes a lot of time out of doing my face for a result that doesn't really look that different. Me personally, I kind of like making my drag face look a little bit like comic book or anime character. I'm gonna use liquid liner to create brow hairs and brow lines. I highly recommend using liquid liner for creating details and for doing your eyes, because pencil liner tends to rub off way too easily. You can use for your brows a liquid liner that's just like a couple shades darker than whatever brow gel you use. But I'm gonna use black since my hair is super dark. But before we do that, I'm gonna go back in with the highlights and a very skinny brush. Again, this is something that you could probably do with a white pencil. But just real quick, I'm gonna add just a little bit of highlight underneath the brow before I put those liquid lines in there. Blend that out. You can probably do this before the brows too. Hi. Create a little individual hair there. Okay, let's do eyeshadow. So to add a brighter base, I'm gonna use some of this white stick on my lids. Some of my eyeshadow has faded a little bit, so this will just help kind of bring it out more. I'm not gonna do a cut crease or put too much emphasis on the eyes. I'm not gonna like reshape the lids and do all that, because I don't, again, I have big eyes. I don't want them to look bigger than they already are. I don't want to feminize my face anymore. Some kings like to play with androgyny, and so they'll have very queen eyes with king contour. That is fine. Drag is literally supposed to be whatever the hell you want it to be. Don't let anybody tell you that you need to do king shit if you're a king, or that you look like too much of a queen. Those people kind of need to shut up. That was kind of the point of drag in the first place, was getting to play with gender. Subvert it and let people be what they felt like being. Right, guys? And I like being a cartoon character, so yeah. Do something real bright, colorful, and kind of funky. Some blue into the crease. I look like a peacock, and that is wonderful. Okay, and I'm gonna do just a little bit of black shading around the eyes. Okay, so before I go in with the eyeliner and do any of the final details, I'm gonna go ahead and do the blush, because I realized I forgot that. So I like to put some blush around the tip of my nose, just to add a little bit of color there. And then I use just a tiny bit on the cheekbones. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the liner. What I recommend is using a pencil liner to get your waterline, just because liquid comes straight off and tends to go right into your eye. But we don't want to use pencil for the whole eye, otherwise it's going to come off way too easily. I tend to get up in the top as well, just to fill in any gaps that there might be. It's perfectly normal to go back in with foundation or the eyeliner and clean up any lines that you may have. How do I put this? Up. Okay, I'm gonna use mascara. Some kings like to use fake lashes. Again, I have pretty big eyes all on my own. I don't really want to feminize them anymore. I like to paint on top of my nostrils, just to create more of a cartoon character face. You can also use liquid liner to create 5 o'clock shadow. I don't really feel like doing that right now. I'll add a reference photo here. So you pretty much want to just kind of speckle it in any places where naturally you would see 5 o'clock shadow grow in. You can add a gray base underneath it before you add the liner on top. Now I'm gonna do my lips. I'll do my lips by having a darker color on top, lighter color on bottom when I want to do that sort of cartoonish Kim Possible type look. For now, I'm going to do another version of the lips that I often do, which is darker color around the edges, lighter color in the middle, sticking to more natural colors. Lighter shimmery color for the inside. Okay, and now I'm going to powder everything. And I'm going to dust this all on top and then let it sit for about 5 to 15 minutes. Particularly on the places where it would crease more typically. And then brush off all of the excess once that time is over. I don't feel like doing that right now because I'm not going to a club to perform. And I'm going to go in and sharpen up any lines I feel faded too much. Gonna add a little blush to my inner eye corners. I'm going to take this time to add any fun finishing details to your look, like glitter. And there you have it, how to do drag king makeup. I hope this was somewhat helpful. If you're looking for a little more guidance in the process, more tips, as well as how to take care of your skin for a better canvas, I would recommend going ahead and checking out the Skillshare tutorial version of this. There's a lot more content, as well as real-time better looks at me actually applying the makeup. But I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you guys around.